for water probably began when my parents placed me in a water-filled tub in the backyard when I was just a year old. My love for fishing probably began when my parents gave me a cane pole and told me I could catch a fish in this tub while on vacation at Grandma's Oklahoma farm. I stood there for an hour and didn't catch a thing. Back home in Michigan, Dad took us on vacation to Walloon Lake, and he rowed me out so I could try and catch my first fish. Never even got a bite. It should be noted we didn't know much about fishing, but we sure loved being out on the water. In 1968, Dad moved our family from Flint to Miami, and I left the cold, frozen backyard ice rink behind for the warm, tropical waters of Miami, and I couldn't have been more excited. Right away, we did all the tourist stuff like visiting Parrot Jungle, and I got to see where they filmed my favorite TV show, Flipper, behind the Miami Seaquarium. Exotic pets were a thing back then, and I got a coatimundi from a pet store in Coconut Grove. He was very cool, and I even brought him to school for a special assembly presentation. A man in my neighborhood had a red-tailed hawk, and he got me interested in the art of falconry, which I taught myself with the help of some really hard-to-find books. While that stuff was acceptable in the 60s, I would never consider doing any of that today. I'd much rather capture wildlife with my camera than keep them captive, and I've learned and grown from my previous experience in a positive way. I could find other things to do, like build and fly gas engine airplanes at the old Tamiami Airport, which we controlled by attached strings. At the top of my list of things to do in Miami was going fishing, and I still hadn't caught a fish, so Dad chartered a fishing boat out of the Haulover Marina, and we went trolling off Miami Beach hoping to catch a sailfish. We took turns waiting for the next fish strike, and everyone else caught a bonita. My turn was an extra hard fight, and when the first mate pulled the fish over the side, we were amazed to see I had caught a barracuda. It was the first fish I ever caught, and I thought it was super cool. We left all our fish back at the dock, and all we had was just a few pictures to remember the day. That wasn't until Christmas rolled around, and my parents surprised me with a special mount of that barracuda I had caught. They had made arrangements with the charter boat captain to have the fish sent to a taxidermist without me knowing about it, and giving me a mount of my very first fish caught completely blew me away. From then on, I was hooked on fishing. We lived in Coral Gables, and there were some saltwater canals close to my house. I'd fish from the bridges and empty lots that lined the canals. On the weekends, Dad would take me to fish Virginia Key and Key Biscayne, where I'd wade the grass flats casting with the silver spoon, and caught more barracudas than I could count. They were a blast on light tackle. Sometimes he'd drive me down to the Keys as far as Tavernier for a full day of fishing and sightseeing. It was a glorious time as we both very much enjoyed being around the water. Dad still wanted to catch a sailfish, so we chartered another boat out of Haulover, and our family went out again with the exception of my little sister. She was a cheerleader for the Miami Dolphins at the time, and they were known as the Dolphin Dolls. On the day of our charter, the Dolphin Dolls were scheduled to make a special appearance at the Miami Beach Fontainebleau Hotel, so she was unable to go fishing with us. Everyone on this trip caught fish, and this time it was all kingfish. Unfortunately, we didn't get a sailfish, but I scored the biggest catch of the day with this 40-pounder. After that, I figured that if I was going to catch fish, I needed a boat. I'd find a boat and take a picture of it, telling Dad this would be perfect, but no such luck. When I got a Schwinn 10-speed bicycle, I'd ride it from our house in Coral Gables to a place called G&W Marine on US 1 in South Miami to look at the boats they had for sale. My favorite was this Checkmate. It was red metal flake and sparkled like nothing I'd seen before. I dreamed of cruising the canals and going wide open in the bay with that thing, but Dad thought it was too impractical. I would have been super happy with another boat they had called the GW Invader, since it was small but fast and would at least get me out on the water. One day I was down there and they had this race boat on a trailer, and I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to drive that thing on the water, but it sure looked fun. My dad worked all week and then spent his weekends either listening to some music at home or taking us out somewhere to do something fun. In 1971, he saw they were going to hold the first ever Champion Spark Plug Unlimited Regatta at the City of Miami Marine Stadium on Virginia Key. So we headed out for my first race of any kind, and I was excited. What makes this extra special is it marks the first time I ever took pictures of an event. Dad handed me his Kodak Instamatic 100 camera that looked like this and told me, "Today, you're the photographer." He loaded it with a roll of 126 film that came in a cartridge. He just popped it into the camera and closed the door. It was a roll of 20 exposures, and he went on to tell me how I needed to pick and choose what I took a picture of, because I only had 20 chances to get something worthwhile. We got inside the Marine Stadium, and I was a bit overwhelmed by it all. Dad then bought an upgrade ticket that got us into the paddock where the race boats were worked on and launched into the water by a crane. The first class of boats we walked up on were the ski boats. I'm going to show the pictures I took that day in two ways. One is the actual picture as it was printed, which is the square ones with the borders. That way you can see how I did with stuff like composition and keeping the horizon level and all that stuff that every beginning photographer struggles with. The full-frame shots are edited versions of the originals and have been fixed up in Photoshop for a better representation of the subject matter by fixing the many flaws of my original. I really liked the ski boats. They were wild out on the water and looked super fast. I managed to capture a few legends of the ski boat class with Wild Hair and Slow Gin Fizz. My favorite was this yellow one with the flame paint job. I can't remember its name, but I think it had something to do with a chicken. Maybe it was called Crazy Chicken, but I do remember it flew on the water and spent more time out of the water than in it, and that's what I liked about it. I tried taking a few pictures of the boats out racing, but it felt like it was hard to get a good picture of them in action. The Instamatic only had a fixed 1/90th of a second shutter speed, and I liked it better when they were moving slow out of the wet pits, making them an easier target. It was pretty cool to see how they got the boats from their trailers to the water, and here I've captured Miss Madison hooked to the crane with what looks to be Miss Timex floating behind. I caught Miss Budweiser sitting on her trailer in the pits. Dad found me a spot on the water's edge at the exit of the wet pits so I could take pictures of the boats driving off, like this one of Black Magic that raced down a class or two from the Unlimiteds. Tom Sheehy pulled Miss Timex out onto the course for some laps. Tom would eventually finish third in this first annual Champion Spark Plug Unlimited Regatta. The pride of Pay and Pack pulled out with Bill Schumacher behind the wheel, and with the DNF finished last in the regatta. Notre Dame was a very sleek looking boat when it pulled out of the wet pits, and with Bill Sterrett driving, Notre Dame managed to finish 5th of the 7 entries in the Unlimited class. Hallmark Homes, driven by Leif Borgensen, took off, and they eventually finished 4th in the race. Miss Madison had unhooked from the crane and was driving off when I snapped this picture. Jim McCormick was the driver. Miss Madison finished 2nd in the Champion Spark Plug Regatta. Even though I wasn't even close to beer drinking age, and my dad liked to drink Schlitz, Miss Budweiser became my instant favorite. Everything about it screamed cool, especially that massive Rolls-Royce engine. Dean Chenoweth pulled Miss Budweiser out of the wet pits with authority and went on to win the first annual Champion Spark Plug Unlimited Regatta at the City of Miami Marine Stadium in 1971. I tried to get a shot of an Unlimited on the course, and as you can see, the results didn't go very well. It's a good thing I didn't waste any more of my 20 exposures trying to get a shot. I can't tell which boat this is. Could be Miss Timex, but might be Miss Madison. Those were the first pictures I took as a photographer at an event. I wasn't hooked yet like I was on fishing, probably because of the limitations of the equipment and not being able to buy film. In 1973, Dad moved us to Naples on the west coast of Florida, and this time we were just a few steps from the beach and walking distance to the Naples Pier, so I was super happy about that. I got my first real 35mm film camera and a 500mm telephoto lens in 1975 because I wanted to be a surfing photographer. But I took pictures of anything that interested me, including the Unlimited Hydroplane racing in Miami. Now, with a camera and my own car, this 1966 Volvo I had bought for $500, I drove over for the 1977 Champion Spark Plug Regatta on my own. I only have a few pictures that I could find from the 1977 race. I've got this one of Bill Munsey driving Atlas van lines. What is especially notable is the new cab-over design, which has the driver sitting in front of the engine instead of behind. Tom Sheehy in the Anheuser-Busch Natural Light maintained the more traditional design and looked spectacular out on the course. I think the lack of pictures was because I was only there for qualifying on Saturday and had spent Saturday night out at the clubs. When Sunday rolled around, I was too broke and too hungover to attend the race. By the way, Bill Munsey in the Atlas van lines was the winner. I was going to every race, concert, and event I could at that time in my life, and started saving and collecting my ticket stubs. I went back to the Miami Marine Stadium for the race in 1979, and the ticket says it cost me a whopping $6. Boy, those were the days. I could only find 3 pictures in my scattered files for the 1979 regatta. I'm sure others will show up in some boxes somewhere, but I can't hold up this project to search for them. Bill Munsey claimed his 4th straight Miami Champion Spark Plug Regatta that year in the Atlas van lines. I went back to Miami for the 1981 race, and the admission price was still $6. New to me was the emergence of the turbine-powered boats, with Pay and Pack being the first I'd seen, and only the second boat to have made the switch from those massive Rolls-Royce Merlin piston engines in the Unlimited class. I had mixed feelings, as it was certainly cool looking and very fast when running, but the turbine engines were unreliable in the saltwater at that time and would often cut out, making for a not very exciting race. The boats with those massive piston engines were extremely loud, which is why they were known as thunderboats. Hearing them coming down the front stretch at full song, sending a rooster's tail sky high with the Miami skyline in the background, is an experience I will never forget, and sadly, one today's generation won't even have the chance to see in person, as those days are long gone. With the help of my telephoto, I got a good look at Miss Budweiser's Rolls-Royce Merlin engine when the cover was taken off so the crew could work on it while she sat in the pits. Watching the boats get transferred from their trailers to the water by crane was fun, and I caught Captran Resorts driven by Bobby Howard being lowered into the water, with the Gilmore Chevy Special driven by Terry Turner already in the water. I caught Miss Budweiser on her way back to the trailer after another blistering performance out on the course. The turbine-powered pay and pack looked very formidable at times, but couldn't outmatch the solid performance of Miss Budweiser, and the beer boat went on to win the 1981 Champion Spark Plug Regatta. The Miami Marine Stadium was the perfect place for a race like this. Spectators had basically two options when it came to watching the race. One was in the stands, where you could find a seat with a perfect view under the shade of what is apparently the largest cantilevered roof in the world. I liked that spot because it was comfortable, and I could get some really cool pictures from that position. Plus, it was fun being elbow to elbow with the crowd of race fans, not to mention watching a few head down to the concession stand. Option number 2 was the shoreline that was at the south end of the course, and directly in front of the parking lot. This was more like tailgating right on the edge of the course, and the view was often better than the stands. It was also a great spot for pictures, and as a photographer I'd switch between the two positions to get a variety of angles. The boats were at top speed when they passed by the shoreline on their way into turn 1, so it was very cool to stand there, and I got some nice pictures for my effort. Moving on to the 1982 Champion Spark Plug Unlimited Regatta, and the ticket price has now jumped up to $7. That wasn't going to hold me back, so once again I went to the race. I only found these two pictures in my archives, even though I'm sure I would have shot at least one roll of 36 exposures, so there's got to be some others floating around somewhere. Unfortunately, they won't make it into this video. At least I've got one of the black boat called Miss Rock being driven by Bob Miller, and one of the eventual winner, Miss Budweiser, driven by Dean Chenoweth. It was Dean's third consecutive victory at the Miami Spark Plug Regatta driving Miss Budweiser, and his fourth win overall in Miami. One reason I might not have taken many pictures in 1982 is because I also brought my Super 8 movie camera and filmed one 5-minute roll while I was there. I spoke earlier about watching the race from the shoreline, and that was a scene on its own. It was barricaded and people were supposed to stay behind them, but the water was too inviting on those hot summer days, and the spectators couldn't resist. The officials came to a compromise and let the spectators cool off in the water between heats, as long as they got out when they announced the next heat race. The spectators mostly behaved, but there's always those few that can't get with the program and leave the water when told. The solution was for the announcer to say the race would be put on hold until the water was cleared out of safety concerns, and that made the spectators seated in the stands mad, which led to a lot of booing until the last person got out. It kind of turned into sort of a game to see who would be the last one swimming. Extra security eventually put an end to that nonsense, and the race went on. 7 boats entered the 1982 regatta, and it looks like I caught Miss Budweiser and briefly Miss Rock with my Super 8 camera. There was a funny looking little white boat with blue trim, and I can't figure out what boat that was, but it looked fast. Chip Hanauer was behind the wheel of Atlas Van Lines and was Miss Budweiser's main competition. This was a new boat that hadn't even been tested when it arrived in Miami for the regatta. Chip ran it briefly on Friday before qualifying it on Saturday. That boat looked evil on the water as it came down the front stretch, with a very light front end causing it to rock side to side. Chip stayed in it and his efforts were nothing short of heroic. If they would have had time to test the boat before the race weekend, they would have had a much better setup and could have given Miss Budweiser a run for the money. At any rate, it was very exciting to watch, and I'm glad I was able to capture it on film. Unfortunately, my Super 8 didn't have sound. That doesn't come till I moved on to video cameras, but the Super 8 film is still fun to watch and captures a bit of unlimited racing history. The 14th annual 1984 race changed from the Champion Spark Plug Unlimited Regatta to the Budweiser Unlimited Regatta, and the admission price was now up to $10. The new race title seemed fitting as Jim Kropfeld drove Bernie Little's Miss Budweiser to another dominant victory in Miami while competing against the largest number of entries since 1974. It was also a sellout crowd with over 15,000 race fans in attendance. I could only find a few photos of that race in my archives. I got a couple nice ones of the Squire Shop driven by Mickey Remond. It was the first time seeing that boat and it looked really fast. I don't remember what happened to the Squire Shop in these pictures, but it wasn't a race-ending event as they would go on to finish the regatta in fourth. Chet's Music was a brand new boat driven by Todd Yarling and did well for its first race by placing second in the regatta. This was the one and only time I saw the Renault boat race. American Speedy Printing, previously known as Miss Madison, was being driven by Ron Snyder. The boat was community-owned and always a sentimental favorite with the race fans. While it thundered around the course and looked spectacular, it was no match for Miss Budweiser that easily drove to victory. I returned in 1985 for the Budweiser Unlimited Hydroplane Regatta, and now the ticket price had jumped up to $12. Really a remarkable value when you consider a ticket for a NASCAR race today costs nearly 10 times as much. It was still too early for video, and I didn't take any Super 8 movies. I hated the expensive Super 8 film, and it just wasn't fun when the only way you could watch them was to set up a projector in the dark. Of course, now I regret not filming more and capturing the history of the Miami Marine Stadium. I did take some pictures, which includes a few races in the lower classes that ran throughout the day to keep the spectators entertained between the unlimited hydroplane heats. Those boats were pretty cool to watch too, and there always seems to be one or two that were way faster than the others. I'd only take a few pictures of those boats because I had a limited number of rolls of film, so I'd save most of the exposures for the unlimiteds. I was there on Sunday for the race, but I heard that during Saturday's qualifying, 6 manatees had meandered onto the course, so qualifying had to be stopped while some divers from the crash boat swam with the manatees to guide them out of harm's way. Sunday's race was fast and furious with 8 Unlimiteds entered. Miss Budweiser showed up with the first enclosed cockpit for the driver in an unlimited hydroplane, a safety innovation that would change unlimited hydroplanes for the better. Unfortunately, Miss Budweiser blew an engine during qualifying, followed by more mechanical problems which put them out of the race, marking the first time they hadn't won the event since 1979. Chip Hanauer was driving the Miss Miller. Problems with the turbine engine plagued them throughout the weekend, and they eventually finished 5th out of the 6 boats entered. Miss 711 also had turbine problems and was unable to start their preliminary heat and eventually finished 4th. Leif Borgensen, driving the Kenny Toyota Unlimited with the much more reliable piston engine, had a great race going until it sputtered on the final lap, dropping from a solid 2nd place to finish 3rd. American Speedy Printing had rookie driver Andy Coker behind the wheel and was running a very respectable 3rd in the final heat when the Kenny Toyota lost power, allowing him to pass them on the last lap to finish 2nd in his first ever unlimited hydroplane race. The day belonged to Scott Pierce and the Miss Executone telephones, as he took top honors, making it his first unlimited win. Once again, the piston power boats proved to be much more reliable than the turbine power, and like many of the races at that time, it was determined more by attrition than speed. It was still a great day of racing at a spectacular venue. I'd like to point out that this was the first time I saw a helicopter following alongside the boats, and I remember thinking how incredibly cool it had to be for that photographer riding in that chopper. At that moment, I never imagined being in that position, but there I was nearly 10 years later, hanging out of a helicopter recording offshore powerboats racing in the 1994 World Championship in Key West. And yes, it was incredible. I don't know where my ticket stub is for the 1987 Budweiser Regatta, but I was there and I took a few pictures. I only found a few in my archives, and it shows how the enclosed cockpit concept had caught on with only Miss Madison sticking with the open cockpit piston engine build. 9 boats entered, with only 6 making it into the water. Chip Hanauer, driving Miss Miller, was plagued with problems and either did not start or did not finish. Steve Reynolds in Cellular One had similar problems and finished dead last. Pantry Pride, with the reliable piston engine, finished a very respectable 2nd place in the Budweiser Regatta. Once again, it was Miss Budweiser on top, driven by Jim Kropfeld in a very sleek-looking boat. Their turbine power proved to be reliable, and the enclosed cockpit innovation was leading the way in unlimited hydroplane racing. Miss Budweiser was the dominant boat and undisputed fan favorite. I did find my ticket stub for the 1988 Budweiser Unlimited Hydroplane Regatta, and this was the first race I was able to record on video. Since we now have sound to go with the video, I'm not going to talk over it with stats and just let the video play. I will say that Miss Budweiser and Mr. Pringles collided in the very first turn of the winner takes all heat. Both drivers, Scott Pierce and Jim Kropfeld, were hospitalized and fully recovered from their injuries. George Woods Jr., driving Oh Boy Oberto, went on to take the win. Here's my video of the 1988 Budweiser Unlimited Hydroplane Regatta.
Watch how they turn. Watch how they turn.
Comer, watch this. Watch this corner here. These first two. They're on the side right now. Watch him get his way cross shot. Look, Comer, look. They're getting the air now. That's what happened. The whole prop came out and spun sideways on cover. This is sketchy now. Don't be looking for an escape route. Front lead. Here. watch this.
As they go by you, ladies and gentlemen, look right there, Bobby. Fishing spots. As we talk about fishing, water skiing, cruising, or racing, these motors offer excitement and high performance, and the dependability of an Everett and a Johnson. So go visit your Everett and Johnson dealer. Now remember, on the bullseye here, we're just testing purposes. And they'll come back at 3:30 to 4:30 in the SST 45. And it'll help set up for them their qualifying positions. And their order of start tomorrow for the big main feature, which will be going on tomorrow afternoon. North American Championship starting at 1:40 in the afternoon. Plus the SST 45 Bud Dash for cash, 5 laps. It'll be at 12 p.m. tomorrow, and then of course the opening ceremony will start with the SST. Couple of days, and now we look out and we see another boat that we have not seen yet on here, on the race course yet. That's boat number 14. He's a 20-year racing veteran, 2 years in this class, and he first increased his horsepower as he has been racing. They call him Fast Freddy. number 14 on the race course. And another boat out there right now is the 98 of Bob Austin out of Rumson, New Jersey. Bob Austin is boat number 98. He's a tremendous driver. And he graduated from UC University in his spare time. He's at boat number 98 for the Turo RC Polo machine. And another driver we're waiting to see, we have not seen him come out yet, is boat number 33. That's Gordy Miller out of Brown Lake, Illinois. Accelerate uppermost. 43.
one's flat out hauling ass too. Look how smooth it's like. I bet Budweiser comes around this time at 130.
passes up in the corner and then catches up.
Look at that. Sideways. What color? You see that?
Miami Marine Stadium on Virginia Key is just a short drive over a couple causeways to Miami Beach, and more specifically, South Beach. When my family lived in Miami in the late 60s and early 70s, Miami Beach really was a retirement community with nothing going on but a bunch of old people sitting in chairs in front of their condos on Ocean Drive. The real attraction was the beautiful beach across the street. The whole scene completely changed in the mid-1980s when cocaine, Miami Vice, and supermodels turned South Beach into a jet-setter's dream destination. For a while, it really was a very cool place to be, and the nightlife was truly unparalleled. There were so many places to see and be seen. Getting a table outside by the sidewalk was a people watcher's dream, with celebrities and cover models casually strolling by. There was a nice balance between the rich and the not so rich, and somebody like me could go there and not feel out of place. It was less than a 2-hour drive from Naples, and spending Saturday afternoon on the beach and Saturday night on Ocean Drive, followed by a full day of unlimited hydroplane racing at the Marine Stadium on Sunday, was almost a perfect weekend. To make it a perfect weekend, I'd try and make a new friend at one of the clubs and get her to come along to the race the next day. Experience tells me chicks dig unlimited hydroplane racing, because I once had Miss Universe 1989 Angela Visser sitting just a few seats down from me in the stands at the Miami Marine Stadium. She was enjoying the race and doing Miss Universe stuff. When she saw me with my camera, she gave me a big smile, so I raised it up to get a shot. It was surreal to have a Miss Universe smiling at me, and I was a bit shook, so I didn't get a perfectly sharp picture, but I did get a couple to preserve the moment. If I wasn't able to score at a place like Wet Willie's on Saturday night, there was still a chance I could find my next camera assistant at the race. After the 1988 race, I missed the 1989 and 1990 races. They didn't hold the Budweiser Unlimited Regatta at all in 1991, but I did return for the 1992 race, and it was a perfect weekend. I couldn't find my ticket stub for the race, but I did find several pictures I took during Sunday's race and some video of Saturday's qualifying. Chip Hanauer broke the course record in Miss Budweiser with a lap of 148.535 miles an hour. During the lunch break, Bernie Little was giving rides in his personal jet boat, and that was pretty cool to see. For some unknown reason, my video camera malfunctioned, and the picture turned to a pink tint for the rest of the day's recording. So I'm going to turn it into black and white, which is how I saw it through the viewfinder that day. Here's some of the action I recorded during Saturday's qualifying at the Miami Marine Stadium.
Bernie Little's offshore jet-powered boat coming by and giving VIP rides right now for... Comes by blistering on the front straightaway.
Do we have communications with the Coast Guard out there?
Speed up again. A little bit of wake action right there on the stage is where the drivers said they had headaches yesterday. Getting water to bounce back off that cement stage was causing problems for the drivers. Now into turn number 3. A nice move through turn number 4. As he comes through, he's bobbing a bit, but he holds it on. Now points it down the right direction, looks up and sees he's got the white flag one more time around. George Wood. Second time around was 137.181 miles an hour. 137.181 miles an hour. So that was his fastest lap of the day so far as he comes by and finishes up his 3-lap effort. And George Woods as he is going faster and faster as this weekend goes on. Webb takes it out on the straightaway. And he's getting down the goes into turn number 3. Hanauer in a very tough corner 3 and 4. That is the open end of the stadium where it gets a lot of jump. Looks up, sees the checkered flag. He's just got half a straightaway to go as he comes by and finishes his 3-lap effort. And turn number 4. Let's see what he learned from Bob Bondurant as he comes down and looks up at the green flag. 2 fast laps of racing in qualification coming up here. Water coming off the backstage of that cement area off to the right of the course. Now into turn number 3. Keeps the speed up. Look at him keep the pin going as he doesn't slide the boat. He points it right in the right direction and comes down the front straightaway and looks at the white flag lap. He's got 1 more lap to go. And he challenges. Third lap. Mark Tate has turned his screws up a little bit more and has moved back into second place in the qualifying effort and is now within 5 miles an hour of the Budweiser. Can he do it on this lap as he comes by and he uses the ball. Faster, 149.220. 149.220. And Mark Tate has put himself on the pole. And Mark Tate has set the absolute fastest lap ever seen here in Miami. Mark Tate just set the fastest lap ever in Miami Marine Stadium with that sensational time of 149.220 miles an hour. This boat, just a matter of an hour ago, was the second fastest on the course. Now it's bumped to third with a startling and stunning 1 lap by the Winston Eagle up to 149.220, the record circuit so far. But let's see what Dave Billwalk does as he comes down the front straightaway. 2 laps of qualifying. Now a nice clean line through there. Halfway home, headed for turn number 2. Brings it out, takes it way wide, comes along the beach on the backside. He uses up all the course as he's trying to find clear water on the back straightaway. Dave Billwalk now going past the cement stage on the backside where they're getting a lot of backwater. And watch there, coming into turn number 3. Here, the fastest part of the course. Has it bounced a bit, but points the boat coming out of turn number 4. Slides it through, holds a pretty even keel as he comes down the front straightaway. Looks like he's trying to pick up a blistering pace as he comes down the front. 1 lap to go. As he goes down the time to come up.
Please, thank you.
He goes into the north side of the course. Here it's open, and it's very very bumpy. He swings it way wide. He's doing the same thing as the Winston Eagle as he keeps it just barely on the course as he gave it everything he got. Coming out of turn number 4. Going to the back. He gave it everything he possibly could in this turn. Yes, it is 140.297. 140.297.
The weather was perfect on Sunday, and spectators packed the stands ready for some great unlimited hydroplane racing. A total of 10 boats entered the regatta, with 7 qualifying for the race. Miss T Plus, driven by Steve David, started the day well, but faltered in the later heats, finishing 7th. American Spirit, driven by Mark Evans, looked like a contender until he hit a buoy in Heat 2A and got a 1-lap penalty. He returned to the race in the last chance heat, but wasn't a factor and finished 6th in the regatta. Kellogg's Tony the Tiger, with Mike Hansen behind the wheel, was doing great and made it to the final heat to face 4 other boats for the win, but was unfortunately unable to answer the green flag to start the heat and finished 5th in the Budweiser Unlimited Regatta. That put 4 boats racing for the win in the final heat. Winston Eagle, driven by Mark Tate, was the second fastest in qualifying with a 147.337 mile-an-hour average lap, putting him just 1 mile an hour slower than Miss Budweiser in qualifying. The tables turned in Heat 2A when the two faced off and Winston Eagle took the heat win in a very tough battle with Miss Budweiser. In the final heat, the Winston Eagle gradually lost power and got a DNF, finishing 4th in the regatta. Now it was down to 3 boats racing for the win in the final heat. Mitch Evans, driving Miss DOC Cooper's Express, the lone boat still with an Allison piston engine, was now in a legitimate 3-way battle for the win against 2 turbine-powered boats, Tide and Miss Budweiser, and eventually came in a very respectable 3rd. Tide, driven by George Woods, put on a great show and looked spectacular out on the course with that bright paint job, but just didn't have enough to catch Miss Budweiser, and Tide finished 2nd. Chip Hanauer, driving a very dominant Miss Budweiser, took the win at the 1992 Budweiser Unlimited Regatta in Miami. Later that year, Hurricane Andrew took a devastating track across Miami, damaging the Marine Stadium. They were able to hold the 1993 Budweiser Unlimited Regatta at the stadium, and once again Chip took the win driving Miss Budweiser. Building inspectors took another look at the damage from Hurricane Andrew and found it unsafe, and the stadium was condemned. The 1993 race was the last Unlimited Regatta held at the Miami Marine Stadium. Efforts to restore the facility to its former glory are currently ongoing, and hopefully it will reopen to some type of activity. I was there for the very first Champion Spark Plug Unlimited Regatta in 1971, attended several races over the years, and I was there for the second to the last race in 1992. It was always a good time, and I'm sad those days are long gone. I am, however, left with over 20 years of racing memories at the Marine Stadium, and captured much of it on film and video, and that's a good thing, because I can create something like this to relive those memories. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this story from one photographer's life.